Hey y'all, Way here. So I've got a video on this, I think a while back. I don't know what it's named, but I don't I don't really like repeating myself, but I find it always comes back to the same things, but they often come back with more clarity. Excuse me. So one of the biggest kind of errors I learned was a certain naivete, and it started out with my initial shift and kind of awakening into non-duality and states of energetic awareness and emotional, energetic and mental awareness, and allowing and witnessing states. You hear about that a lot. The witness observer, right? You're the witness. You're pure awareness, even going into these states of consciousness. And these were things that I didn't really seek. This was just something that was thrust upon me in like the beginning of 2019. Had that initial kind of awakening shift spontaneously, and was not looking for it. So anyhow, all this kind of just came into my awareness, and this was just how to be. But there were certain things and information that wasn't really the full picture there yet, right? So I developed this real naive space of energetic allowing and witnessing, and I could allow basically anything into my field energetically and emotionally, and could transmute that. Transmutation was a big part of this path. Alchemy, alchemical transmutation, mental transmutation in the hermetic path. It's basically like holding, converting the emotional, energetic energies that come up within the body. And there's somatic therapy and stuff that ties into that now. The somatic work, you hear that, somatic healing. That's basically, it's the same thing. So you're becoming aware and going into that sensation within the body. And this is great. So this really is the path, but it's not the full picture, because if you're not undoing what is essentially linking and looping you into these energetic fields, and I refer to them as egregores lately, because I think that's the most accurate depiction that's available currently. With using the shortest words, I can go into it a little bit more. Basically like morphogenetic, constructed thought fields, basically from the power of the collective mind and unconscious, and these are manipulated by other energies and entities. So it's a whole thing, and you have depths and levels of awareness of this at different points. But anyhow, going back to where I was coming from, is like I was very naive to this, and allowed all of that because I could, right? And because like that, and that was also developed as the path, what needed to be done. This needs to be processed. There's this collective unconscious energy that has to be purified. And I saw it. This wasn't like an idea. This was something that I could actually see from the beginning, the initial shift. I could see the gridlock of this in the field and the collective unconscious, and how this was being used to control and manipulate humanity, and keep the consciousness suppressed and all that. It's just a fear-based system that keeps humanity basically enslaved through its own choices and consciousness. But there's heavy manipulation to keep that fear field and in there. But it's a choice. Ultimately, it is a choice that humanity is making to choose that for itself. But there is the unfair levels of manipulation. So that, and people are unconscious to that, right? And then you're unconscious of that because you're just attached to those egregoric identities as aspects of yourself. They're not really you. It's just an aspect that's adopted, and so then you're basically able to be utilized as like basically an aspect of a hive mind within that, right? And this is where, whoever has the real power and control over these hive minds, basically you're their subject at that point, right? You're their subject for manipulation. And this is where the naivete comes in, because you're always serving something. And so like you can empty out, and then like, okay, well, then you've got these energies that are coming in, and you're aligned by that, whether you're processing that or not. um, Sooner or later, there's going to be like a certain choice point to where you're forced to face that. You're forced to face, and either you're going to submit to that. And there's lots of people that have spoken on this. Dr. David R. Hawkins spoke very intelligently on this. That many people do fall. They want the whatever it is, the fame, the easy comfort, the sexual distortions and perversions. I had a point in my life where I had that clear offer, and it disgusted me that it so much that I tried to keep it unconscious, because it was like I wasn't even coming from a place of like wanting to teach or like anything like that, like spiritually. But it was this distortion of comfort and like stuff that was unpurified still within me, like this sloth and like sexual desire, and basically the easiest way for like the highest comfort. And it was like I saw this path, and I saw the path. It was really tied up with the egregoric thing with the Epstein and Diddy, and how they manipulate all the famous people and all that, because it's the same thing. That's that egregore, and you do that, and you get the blackmail, a little bit of like use the lust and manipulation, and get that, and then boom, you're in that contract. And some never question it. It's an unconscious thing, and boom, boom, boom. If you're already living that lifestyle and that's what you want, then but if there's a conflicting, then there can become that conflicting lifestyle, and it's like, oh no, then that's where people see they're not really free. They're not really sovereign anymore. That's where you get the whole sell your soul thing. And I had to purge that about 2 years ago, and it was real nasty trying to leave that. I became aware of that entity on a very high level, and it wasn't fun. I tried to naively tackle that. Then I did the other distortion, tried to naively think I could take on all of that energy, because I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. This is manipulating so much. And basically the asmodic egregoric energy field that manipulates lust and sexual distortions and confusions and distrust between male and female. And it's one of the biggest ones controlling and manipulating this planetary field right now. And I get a lot of kickback when I try to speak on this, but I actually had to pause and clear a lot quite before I did this video, just because anytime I go, that's how I can see those kind of synthetic attachments that still try to come in and get that kickback in the field. You might think that's all cleared, but then, for me, opening up and doing these kind of communication videos, a lot of times at the beginning, I can see, where that tries to come in and feel that, and tune into that. And it's like, oh, no, hey, guys, not doing that. And that's really the important thing is like, okay, well, I was going off on the tangent with the osmotic energy field here, so I want to finish that up. But it was very difficult. I became aware of that, and then it was like there was a lot of distortion going on here, as far as like some drinking and stuff, and trying not to be like aware. Like I didn't want to face that. I was like purging, like this is ridiculous. This is like what? Like this is insanity. Of course I'm not saying, and it's like literally trying to drive me to the point of like suicide and confusion. And I was like, this is not happening. It took a few months to actually clear this one, and I had to do some heavy work, and then it was a real dark night of the soul afterwards too, because it was like, kind of being alone and not having the kind of guidance and connection in the field almost. But it was all part of that process of unplugging from that, those grids and seeing that. And I'm not saying that those are entirely, like, that's a huge networking field. I don't think anybody can entirely unplug from that one in the nature of the 3D reality, because there's so much of the polarity and contrast is caught up with the male-female dynamic. So, and it's also it's not our responsibility to take on everything for everyone. And first of all, that's already done. That's the whole Christ won, and the Christic, rising above the battlefield too, and of course the miracles, how there's no battle to be. You have to see that. Yeah, you see that, and then you rise above that, because that's already won. You don't need to fight that. that egoic version of yourself is not the true version of yourself. That's the version that's tied up and has those connections to those synthetic egregoric energy fields. So that's always what's going on, and it's learning how to detach from that and not reconnect, because like we have that, like I was talking about, even like at the beginning, I had to clear and see those subtle connections that are trying to come in still and disrupt, and not allow that clear connection to be there. And this is all that's ever going on. This is all that's ever going on. And more of us are tuning into that and having the ability. And I do it now a lot of times through like light frequency visualization. I can often feel, when I feel those energies coming in, I can hold that in the field and in the grids, and see that, and often go into those, whatever those timelines that they're trying to construct through those negative thought fields. Just like, okay, let's bring that in. Let's see that right now. Like, okay, you want to go there, and let's heal that. I can give love to that. I'll watch that like an anime episode, and we'll give the highest light and love to that we can. And that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm living. But it's not like a whole thing. Like, that happens very, like, at first, you might get caught up in that and like go into that in some weird way. But like, this is how I'm speaking of it is very organic, very pure, very quick, very simple, and not like some like trudging struggle that like you're enduring throughout the day or something. This is just like a beautiful new part of life and exploration, and there can be a lot that opens up, insight and connectivity that opens up through that. But I don't feel called to really speak on that now, because that's kind of a certain personal subjective thing that is organic and subjectively different for everybody in their own personal unique way. And that's what's cool. So that's what's like, we don't have to get rid of that as some like distorted hive mind needing to empty out and be nothing and nothingness. Like, it's like that is an aspect of the truth, but that's not like your higher self is here now embodied for a reason as you. It's not an accident, and because you have the potential to rise above even higher than that aspect of self. Otherwise it wouldn't be here. It's not an idiot. God's not stupid. Yeah, so trust yourself. Trust that. Trust what you're here for, and learn to be free within that. And that's really all it is. It is the eradication of that self-doubt, and seeing, others are going to be however they're going to be and wherever they're at, and we can learn to love and allow that and stand in the truth. And that doesn't mean it's coming from a distorted version of allowing and people pleasing and laying down like a doormat either. No, it's like, hey, this is me and the path that I'm walking, and boom. It's like, if it fits into that, it fits into that. If it, and more and more, you're going to be called and see where it's like those egregoric attachments are what's like the people pleasing. Because it's like, you just want to fit in. You just want to be in. You're choosing. It's not them doing that. It's your weak, fearful self that's choosing fear over what it knows to be truth every time. And so you're having to come back to the self-responsibility and take accountability for the fact that it was always just you choosing to give your power away and think small of yourself. But you're not doing that anymore. We're stepping up, shining bright. That's what my first name means, Albert. Shining. I'm the shining holy river, cuz. Did you know? I knew. I forgot for a little while. But I love y'all. It's my birthday. I'm gonna have a good birthday. I messed my back up like a few days ago, so I was recovering from that. But it's good. I had faith through all that. Man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful here. We're getting rid of all the bullshit. We're gonna see it, but it's like, hey, nah, no more. That's the joy. It's the truth. It's the love. That's the way. All right, y'all. Peace and love. I'm out. Bye.